average. We have already seen it. I don't re-explain it, but let's do it very briefly. Here you have two series, so two series of number. Let's calculate the average, very easy. We have seen something much more difficult. If for mistake one of these numbers is empty, or one of these cells contains text, don't worry, it will be excluded from the calculation. So Excel will completely skip the cell. Okay, so if, for example, here you write something instead, okay, the average changes clearly, but the cell is not included in the calculation. You can extend the result to series B. Okay, standard deviation, StDev. It's not my task to explain to you what is standard deviation. You have courses of statistics to learn it. I just tell you how to calculate it in case you have to calculate. Some of you will remember it from high school. StDev.S. Okay. We use the StDev.S, which is the sample standard deviation, and not P, which is the population standard deviation. It are slightly different. Please, at exam, use the S. Okay. The variance. What is the variance? The variance is simply the square root of the standard deviation. So you could calculate it in this way. Sorry, the square root, the square. I repeat, the variance is the square of the standard deviation. You could calculate it in this way, or you could calculate it with the appropriate function, var, which obviously gives the same result. Well, with one digit of approximation more. Okay? Same thing here. So the variance is the square of the standard deviation. Also, again, it's not my task to explain to you what it is. Unfortunately, I have to explain to you what is a normal distribution, because otherwise you will not understand anything from the next two functions, normDist and normInv. I need to draw some pictures. Paint is okay. Okay, let's see. I suppose that you have seen sooner or later this thing here. This is the normal distribution Q function. Okay. Well, if you are curious, its formula, it's rather complicated. There is an exponential, square root inside. We don't deal with f. So this is the func f x, and this is x. Okay. The normal distribution function. It's a one function. It's called also Gauss function. It's a very famous function used a lot in statistics. Unfortunately, nobody is able to calculate the value of the area below this function. Probably you know from mathematics course or from high school that in order to calculate the area, we use integrals. So this integral here. Okay. Nobody is able to calculate this primitive here. Okay. It's really impossible. So in order to calculate the area below this function, which in statistics represents a probability, so in statistics the area below this function represents a probability, and it's very important. It's probably the most common probability, the most used probability. Since nobody can calculate the value of this function, people have estimated it, and you find it printed at the back of old statistics books. New statistics books don't have the values of this area printed anymore. Okay, you have in old statistics book you have the value printed for every number, for many numbers here. Okay, because everybody uses computer to calculate the area of this function. Okay. In particular, we are interested, once we fix a value z, okay, we are interested in knowing the value of this area here. The value of the area that I will now spray. Do I have a spray here? I don't have the spray. Yes. This area here. Okay, so in statistics, many times you face this problem. You have a value z, and you want to know the value of this area, which is the integral, give me a standard brush, from minus infinity, start from minus infinity, up to z of the normal function. Okay. The normal function has two parameters. Okay. We must unfortunately now write the normal function, fx, if I remember it, because it's years that I don't have to deal with it. 2 Greek pi sigma square e to the power of minus, open parenthesis, x minus mu square divided by 2 sigma. Having hoped to write it correctly, I think I've written it correctly. You can see you substitute it has two parameters. Well, x is the function argument, but two parameters, mu and the sigma. Okay, here it appears sigma square, here sigma. Okay, so it's a parametric function. It changes its shape whenever these two parameters change. So a typical problem in statistics is evaluating this area once you are given mu, sigma, and z. Okay, Excel can do it automatically without having to do strange calculations. Okay. So suppose I give you z equal to 1.12, mu 0.15, sigma square, and pay attention, I'm giving you sigma square 1.7. Okay, I ask you the probability equal norm.dist of x. Unfortunately, Excel, what is typically called z, changes it and calls it x. And what is typically called by everybody mu, Excel calls it mean, so 0.5. And what everybody calls sigma, Excel calls it standard deviation. So pay attention that this one is sigma, it's not sigma square. So if I am so evil to give you sigma square, you must calculate the square root. Last parameter, cumulative, always please true, T-R-U-E. If you type true, it gives you the integral. If you type false, it simply tells you this value here. Okay, we are not interested in that value, we want to know the integral. So let's review it. The function which calculates that area, which is the probability with a normal distribution with mu 0.5 and sigma square 1.7 to have a value smaller than z, or if you prefer, the area between minus infinity and z under the normal function will blah blah blah. So these are the two ways that in statistics that area is called. So people of statistics call the area as the probability blah 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 to have a value smaller than z. In order to calculate that area, you must have z, so the right extreme of the integral, mu, one parameter of the normal distribution, sigma and not sigma square. If I give you sigma square, please use the square root. And write true, because true gives you the area. Result 0.68. The result must always be between 0 and 1, because in statistics it represents a probability. It may never be smaller than 0 or larger than 1. Unfortunately for you, many times it happens in statistics that you do the vice versa. Okay. So you know the area, you know the value of the blue area, and you want to get to know z. So exactly the opposite. You know the value of the blue area, and you have to know z. So this is norm inv. Okay. Probability. Probability is the area. I will write here a little example with area 5%. So you can write 5%, or if you prefer 0.05 is the same. Mean is again mu. Standard deviation is again the square root of sigma square. Here no other parameter is necessary, and this is the value of z, minus 1.6. Oh, this is not a probability, so it can be any value. So these are the two typical problems that I will give you during the exam, just to teach you that Excel has a lot of functions which gives you probabilities, or given the probability gives you the value, and which can be used to simplify your statistics calculations. Okay, we just deal with a normal, so you can learn to use at least once. Pay attention at exam to distinguish whenever I ask for a probability or an area, which in statistics are the same, or whenever I give you the area and ask for a value. If I want to know the probability or the area, you must use norm dist. If I give you the area and I want to know the value, you must use norm inv. Okay, so pay attention. It's a typical mistake to confuse the two things. Okay, we'll see now multiple sheet references. This is the case where you want to take the value of a cell, but unfortunately that cell is not in the same sheet, or in other situation is not in the same file. Let's see how to do it. It's pretty easy. Suppose here in column K you want to take column B and multiply all its values by this number here. So number in C2 sheet first. So you are in sheet statistics and you want to multiply these numbers by a cell which is in sheet first C2. Okay, let's see, equal the number multiplied by. Now there are two ways here. The first one is you just type with your fingers. Usually it's the safest, but it's maybe very long. First exclamation mark C2. Okay. If you use this technique, you may not switch sheet, so don't resist please resist the temptation to click here. Okay. Okay. Now remember that if you want to multiply by sheet first cell C2, you must dollarize cell C2. Oops. Why is it bold? Okay, remove the bold. Okay, so now we can drag down. Okay. If you don't put a dollar, clearly cell C2 becomes C3, C4, C5, even though it's in another sheet. Okay, so you can see. Okay, so doing this thing is pretty easy. However, it's a little boring because you have first of all to type manually the name of the sheet, and in case the name of the sheet contains, like here, spaces, you must put it between single quotation. We'll see later. Moreover, you must remember by heart in which cell it was. You may not click here, everything will be screwed up. Okay, clearly it's much better to go here and select with a mouse, but this presents a little problem. Let's do it. Equal this one by, you go to sheet first, okay, you click with a mouse, C2, okay. You see here in the formula bar everything is correct and it's okay. Now if you press enter, you jump automatically to the original sheet and everything is fine. So I will now press enter, jump automatically, and everything is fine. However, most of the time you have the temptation to manually go to the original sheet. So you have the temptation to do like this. B2 by, go here, click here. Can you see that the formula is correct? You have the temptation to click back to sheet statistics. Okay. As soon as you click back to sheet statistics, Excel decides that you don't want to take the cell from sheet first, but from sheet statistics, and screws up your formula. So you have to go back to first. Now Excel puts again first. Okay. So Excel has this very bad habit, if you switch sheet, to change also the last sheet reference. How to solve this problem? Well, you can either press enter here, okay, but most of the time you would like to go on with the formula. Suppose the formula is complex, is more complex, is not over here, you would like to go on. In case you would like to go on, how can you do? Well, my suggestion is B2 by, go to sheet first, Click here, everything is correct. Now don't immediately go back, but put any mathematical symbol, for example plus. Well, if you want to go on with a formula, you will put other mathematical symbols, for example plus in this case. Now you may go back. Okay, can you see that if you put plus, first C2 remains correct. Excel adds statistics exclamation mark, but that's okay. You can remove it manually or can leave it. Plus this here. Oops, some chaos. Okay. Okay, this means B2 from current sheet. If you don't specify any sheet, it's from current sheet. By first C2, so cell C2 in sheet first, plus cell F2 in sheet statistics, which is the current sheet. So if you want, you can remove it. Okay. But you can also leave it. So remember, pay attention when taking cells from other sheets. It's very easy to do it with a mouse. You can take also entire ranges, obviously, but resist the temptation to go immediately back to your original sheet, because Excel will change the reference. Instead, if you need to go, if the formula is over, just press enter and Excel will send you back to the original sheet. If, on the other hand, you need to go on with a formula, just go on, so put any mathematical symbol and then you may go back without any damage. Okay, also for cells taken from other sheets, the same thing is true. So if I now drag down, it becomes B2 by B3 by first C3, B4 by first C4, etc., etc., as you can see. So you need to remember to put dollars if necessary. Same thing if you're planning to take things from other files, but instead of putting the sheet name, you must put the sheet name with the exclamation mark and before the name of the file with the square brackets. So this is the meaning of the square brackets in Excel. It means things from another file. I strongly discourage, while I fully encourage this thing here, I strongly discourage this thing here, because taking data from other files, it's very dangerous. In case the other file is moved or in case it's deleted, well, you will not have your data anymore, your formula will not work anymore. So this one is very good, this one very bad. Last thing, suppose for example, again you want to take this thing here and multiply by something in sheet loan 1. Well, let's take let's take another one, loan 2. This interest rate here. Okay, press enter, let's see the formula. Can you see that since loan 2 contains a space, Excel had decided to put this single quotation, the apostrophe. Okay, so sheet names can be written directly if they don't contain spaces. If they contain spaces, they must be enclosed by apostrophe. Okay, well, it's not a problem if you click. If you decide to type them yourself, remember that you may not do something like this. Okay, for this one will be incomprehensible for Excel. As you can see, oops, Excel has written name. Let's try to open another window. Okay, this one is the right thing. Okay. Okay, let's go on with what if analysis. What if analysis is a set of tools which let you do some little experiments with Excel table. So you have an Excel table, you want to change something and see what happens. Okay, usually this should require mathematical equations and solve manually mathematical equations. With Excel you can do everything just quick and numerically. Let's see, the easiest one is the goal seek. So go to what if. Okay. You have here the series of data which we had before. Let's calculate the average, equal average. Average is 17,02. Modify B2 in such a way that average will be equal to 20. Well, you can do it manually. This one you can really do it manually. You can say, well, 45, let's put a little more, 60, even more, 80, a little less, 75, 20, you are almost close, let's say 74,90. Okay, well, you can see, you can do it, now we'll undo, but it's a little ridiculous, it may take hours. Okay, Excel can do exactly what you are trying to do, but in a few instants. It's very easy, it's here, data, what if analysis, goal seek. Whenever you use goal seek, please read exactly what's written. It's written in English, so it's very easy. Set cell, this one, to value 20 by changing cell, this one. Once you have put inside the values, you read it again. Set cell B13 to value 20 by changing cell B2. Okay, because it's very easy to switch the first with the third argument. Okay, this, you can see, it's a tool, it's not a function, it's a little tool. It will automatically modify this cell here until it finds the right way that you want here. Clearly there must be here a formula which involves this cell here. If here you don't have any formula, or you have a formula which doesn't have anything to do with cell B2, well, you can stay here hours and you will never reach any result. Click OK, and you can see in a few instants, really it's a matter of instant, Excel has found the value 74,84, okay, which gives you a correct value of 20. At exam, sometimes I suggest you to use goal seek whenever it's the case. I may not suggest it. I may simply write you change this cell in such a way that the other cell be equal to this value here. Well, you should understand yourself that if such a question comes up, goal seek needs to be used. You will do obviously exercise with the teaching assistants. There are, however, situations where goal seek doesn't work. For example, try to calculate here the variance. $714. Now I tell you, please change cell B2 in such a way that this value here be equal to 10. So you take your goal seek, set cell B17 to value 10 by changing cell B2. Okay, and you see that Excel spends hours and hours, or better, seconds, trying desperately to find a solution. At the end, he should find 10, and he found 348. It tells you whether you want it or not. Well, I don't want it, cancel. Okay. This is a situation where the result doesn't exist, so there is no value here for which you can have a result of 10 here, so it's impossible. So if you see that Excel spends a lot of time and cannot find the solution, usually it's either too difficult for him, but most of the cases it's really impossible. So this is the first thing of the what if analysis. As you can see, it's a set of tools which change your sheet and show you different things. How could it be if something? Okay, let's see a more complex one, the scenario manager. Let's look here. Suppose you are running a little company. You have a gross income of 12,000 euros. You have employees which cost you 2,000 euros. You don't pay any rent cost. You have a very small company. You make 200. You spend 200 euros in advertisement, 1,900 euros in machines. Okay, your result, it's clearly your gross income minus all your expenses. 7,900 euros. It would be very nice if you had not to pay the taxes. A wonderful 55% of taxes, but you can deduct some expenses. Well, depending on the type of expenses, you can deduct different amounts, so the formula here is rather complicated. I put deliberately a rather complicated formula, so you will appreciate that Scenario Manager will do everything without your manual intervention. Okay, you have a net result here, which is your result minus the taxes. This is what comes inside your pockets. Okay, this is your current company now. You would like to change a little bit these values here, and see what happens. So for example, if you hire more people, you will have a larger income, but more employees cost. If you rent something, if you increase advertising, so you would like to change these parameters here. So you would like to build a set of scenarios where you have more employees cost, but more income, etc., and see what the result is. You would like also to build up a summary table which presents you all the possible scenarios. You can do it automatically without having to manually change here the things. Especially the problem is that if you manually change things here, then you will have to undo to go back. Okay, you can build a set of values here which will present to you the different results here. What if analysis, scenario manager. Okay, first of all, it's a good idea to define the current scenario. So add current situation. Okay, here the cells that you would like to change, current these ones. Don't worry about these things. Okay. Okay, Excel asks you for the values for this cell, leave what you find. Okay. And you have created the first scenario, which is the current situation. Now let's create another scenario which is the case where you have more employees. Add. So more employees. So you increase the expenses for employees to 5,000. You should increase also to 20,000 your gross income, and maybe you need some offices, so $300 in offices and a little more in machines. Now let's build another scenario where you have let's say a larger building, same employees but a larger building. Add larger building. So you will pay a lot of rent. Okay, I imagine that with a larger building you have more income, also maybe more machines. Okay, now let's add another scenario where you want to make more advertisement. So more advertisement. So you will have $800 in advertisement, and I hope you gain more, otherwise why do you make advertisement? Okay, now finish, press OK. So you have 4 scenarios: current situation, more employees, larger building, more advertisement. You can see you can just go to one, for example, go to more employees and click show. Excel will automatically adapt everything. You can see. Show you what happens. Larger building, show. More advertisement, show. Current situation, show. Okay, so you can jump from one to the other. Very good, for example, if you're running a presentation in front of your partner and you want to show different possible situations without having to undo, redo here with the 2 arrows. Okay. If you want to build up a little summary which includes all the scenarios, click on summary. Okay. First of all, you should select which are the results. Well, don't believe to what Excel is suggesting. Okay. The results are here. Okay, so my results are the result, the text, and the net result. Or if you want only the net result, but it's a good idea also to present the result and the text. Okay, choose the first one. The second one doesn't provide anything which is really very good. The first one is very good. Okay. And here what you get, you can see it's a very good table which describes the current values, well, the current situation. Here the current values are identical to larger building. Okay. The situation with more employees, with more advertisement, and you can compare the final gain and choose the best one, which in this case is more advertisement. Okay. The only problem of this scenario summary, are these things here. Well, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E8, E9, E10, if you present this to an audience, everybody will wonder what they are. So in general, it's much better to assign cells name when you build a scenario with a scenario manager. So go back to, here you should see what if. So destroy scenario summary, so delete. Go back to what if. We will now assign names to these cells here. No, better, sorry, to these cells here. So go to 18,000 here. How to assign a name? You assign a name just changing this issue. It may seem strange, so be sure to be on issue and write gross underscore income. Cell name cannot accept spaces, so gross underscore income. Enter. Here, employees. Okay, you don't need to write exactly what you see on the left. You can write what you want. Rent. Advertisement. So the only rules here is that you must start with a letter, no spaces, and obviously you cannot choose that this cell be called G3, because G3 is already another cell. So machines, result, text, net underscore result. Okay, if you assign names, it will be much easier for you to add the scenarios. Add. Can you see? Because you see clearly what are the 5 fields. No, cancel, it's not necessary. It will be also much more user-friendly, your final summary. This 3. Can you see? Much more user-friendly, I would say. So, okay, delete. Let's go to the last of these tools, the data table. Well, I would like to underline something. All these tools represent something that you could do manually. So either with formulas, as the scenario manager can be done manually, changing the values manually using the formulas, or by trial and error, like goal-seek. Okay, data table can be done also introducing manually many formulas. However, well, automatizing this task speeds your work up a lot. You will see, especially with data table. I will now show you some examples for which, if you want to make it yourself with the formulas, it takes at least 20 minutes. So let's see data table. Data table is, on a certain sense, similar with scenario manager. What is your situation? A data table is also called sensitivity analysis. You have a certain set of formulas. You have one number, in this case one number only, which represents your final net results. For example, we'll take always this data. The net results here, as you can see, represents results minus the text, while results is a function of these numbers here, and the text is a very complicated function of these numbers here. Okay, so the net result is a very complex functions of these numbers here. Okay, you should put it here. You either put the formula directly, so you put E8 minus E9 here, or much more simple, you put equal E10, and then E10 is equal to E8 minus E9. So it's perfectly equivalent to put E8 minus E9. Okay, I put directly E10, so I take it from here. Okay, here you put a parameter which you want to change. In this case, suppose I want to change advertisement. And I would like to see how does it impact on my final net result. Pay attention that while here you change all the variables, here you change only one variable. Okay, changing advertisement means that the result will decrease, because for me is a cost. But also the text will decrease, because you can see I can deduct 30% of the advertisement cost. No, 50% of the advertisement cost. So I want to see what my net result will be. Oh, again here, nothing forbids me from manually digiting 300, 400, 500 here and see what the result is. However, the presentation is much better and it's also much faster. So how does it work? Pay attention. Before the exam, I strongly suggest you to review how data table works, because it's not intuitive. Okay? It works in the following way. First of all, select everything. So select the numbers that you want to change, your formula, and where you want to put the numbers. Then data table. Okay, this is a, you can see, a column only data table. So because you have only a column of numbers, we will do other examples like this one where you have a column and a row. Here you have only a column of numbers. Okay, but pay attention to a common error. A common error now is to select this column here. You read column input cell, and so you know it's completely wrong. Okay, you should click here. Okay, it may seem ridiculous to you because you're working on this table, you should click somewhere else, but don't forget that your formula here makes a reference to this one, which makes a reference to this one, and to this one, which make reference to this one. So at the end, your formula here depends on this one, and you're telling to Excel to replace this number here with all these numbers here. Press OK. Don't worry about the row, you don't have any data on the row. Okay, and Excel automatically displays what will your net result be, so what will this result be, in case you change this 200 to these values here. Okay. I repeat, you could do everything manually, typing here, for example, 3000, and you will see 778. Okay. You could do also the table manually, inserting here the formula, which takes the value from here instead of taking it from here, but it's, I think, at least a 15-minute work inserting these two formulas here. Okay. Data table automatically does everything for you. Let's see a similar thing, so always data table, but this time a two-dimensional data table. So in this case, instead of changing only one parameter, I will change two parameters. So here the usual advertisement cost, and here we suppose to have, let's say, the gross income. So we make a more realistic example. This is not realistic because you change the advertisement cost, but your income remains the same, so clearly your net result will go down. Okay. Here you change you make an analysis of what happens to your net profit if you change the advertisement cost, but at the same time you see what happens if the net income changes. So we'll fill in all these tables here. So what to do? First of all, remember, first step is always selecting everything. Second step, data table. Third step, now you should select the row and the column. Please resist the temptation to select row here, column here. It's not here, it's this one. Row is the value that you want to replace with your row, and column the value that you want to replace with your column. So the value that you want to replace with your column, the value that you want to replace with your row. Press OK, and the table is automatically filled. You can see that inside you have this equal table, a magic between square curled brackets, a magic formula of Excel. You should not touch it. Okay, so you can see that if your advertisement remains at 200 and your gross income at 18,000, you have at 3,346. Okay, more or less the same. It should be exactly the same. It's rounded. But if your advertisement doubles, okay, and your income increases to 25,000, you have much more. Okay, you can study all the possible combinations. There are situations where you make a disaster, your advertisement increases, but your income decreases. Okay, you can especially see where your let's say where your minimal line is. So this is the minimal line above which you will earn too little. Okay, so if your advertisement is 2,000, you have at least, let's say, to earn 18,000, otherwise you don't even cover your expenses. Okay, so data table is used to make changes to your scenario, but in a different way. While for the scenario manager you fix the entire set of values, for data table you analyze the variation of one parameter only here, and the variation of two parameters here. It's also called sensitivity analysis. It's used rather often to analyze, let's say, automatically what happens. In the scenario manager, you don't analyze automatically. You have already in your mind some ideas of what the future will be. Here you don't know exactly what the future will be, you want to see what happens, and you put two parameters, you try to modify them in this way, and you analyze their cross relation. In order to explain the usage of this Excel solver, we will use a brief example. Suppose you are a one-person business, so you are a professional, and you have two types of activities: writing books and giving seminars. Each book that you write requires more or less 300 working hours, and you earn 15,000 euros. Each seminar, however, requires much less working hours, 20, and you will earn 10,000 euros. Well, you would like, as most of the people, to optimize your earnings. Given the fact that the seminar requires much less working hours and you earn 2/3 of a book, usually your obvious choice could be to give as many seminars as possible. So if this were the situation, the problem is obvious. However, the problem is not so simple as it seems. For example, there may be some constraints, so you may have some condition to satisfy. The first one may be the fact that in order to be called by universities for seminars, you need to write books. If you stop writing books, they won't call you anymore. So the first constraint you may have is to write at least one book every year. Okay. On the other hand, you may have other constraints. For example, your publisher would like you to give some seminars to advertise your book. So your publisher could ask you at least 4 seminars per year in order to advertise your book. Okay. Other constraints, well, obviously you don't have an unlimited amount of working time. Let's fix it in 1,600 hours per week. Okay. Moreover, each seminar that you give and each book that you write costs you some money, for which you have some separate fundings. Suppose you have 18,000 euro fundings, and each book uses 2,500 euro, and each seminar 500 euro. So you will have to respect also this constraint here. So you have 4 constraints: this one, this one, this one, and this one. And you would like to maximize your earnings, satisfying your constraints. Now the situation is not so easy as before, because you cannot simply give as many seminars as possible, because obviously you will need to write at least one book. Okay. And you will have some fixed constraints, some other constraints to respect. So how to find the amount of books and the amount of seminars that you give each year, which satisfy your constraints and at the same time maximize your earnings? Well, Excel Solver is the tool which will let you do it. Let's go to Excel. Okay. In order to activate the solver, go to Data. Here, if you don't see the solver here, it's because you have not installed it. I didn't install it, so it needs to be installed in File, Options, Add-ins. Choose Excel Add-ins and click Go, and add the solver. Well, randomly you will have it in English, Italian or German. I have it in Italian. I have Excel in English, but even though I have the solver in Italian is called componente aggiuntivo risolutore. In German it's called solver. You just click here, press OK, and now it appears. If it does not appear, just close Excel and reopen it. So now you have the solver. Let's prepare the problem, okay, you should clearly identify your variables, your objective, and your constraint. These are vital. So the most important part is here identifying variables, objective, and constraints. So my variables in this case is how many books do I write and how many seminars do I give. So just put some values, some, let's say, starting values, 1 and 1. Okay, just a starting values, not important. Then your objective function, the thing that you would like to maximize, or as we will see later, to minimize. It's a good idea to give a name to these books and a name to these seminars. So to assign cell names. Assigning cell name is very easy. You just go here and you write here the name books. You go here and you write here the name seminars. Okay. Well, if you don't do it, it works the same way, but you will have to remember that B2 is books and B3 is seminars. So here your objective function equal, let's see the instructions. You earn 15,000 euro for book and 10,000 euro for seminar. 15,000 by books plus 10,000 by seminars. Okay. Here your constraints. So the first constraints the minimum number of book policy. Okay. Here the formula equal books. The minimum is 1. There is a minimum number of seminars policy also. Seminars. The minimum is 4. Then you have other constraints. Your working hour limit. Let's see the instruction. Each book 300 working hours. Each seminar 20. Equal 300 by books plus. Okay, it is the amount of working hours that this amount of books and seminars need, and this is the maximum that you have. Moreover, also the cost limit. Let's see, I don't remember. Each book cost, where is written, 2,500. Each seminar 500. So okay. So currently for one book and one seminar you spend 3,000 euro of your fundings, so you are well within the limits. You work only 220 hours. You satisfy this one, you don't satisfy this one, however. Okay. Let's see how does the solver work. You just click. Once you have fixed all these things, which are the most important thing, it's very easy. You just click here on the solver. Okay. You set here your objective function, which in this case is here. Oops, I reset it, sorry. Okay. Okay, I set here my objective function. Okay, I decide whether I want to maximize, minimize, or try to find the combination of books and seminars to have exactly a certain value. Okay. I select which cells am I allowed to modify, these ones. And here the boundaries, the constraints. Add. Okay, first constraint is the cost limit, which must be smaller or equal than this value here. Add. Second constraint, the working hour limit, which must be smaller or equal than this value here. Add. Third constraint, the minimum number of books. I can choose this one, but I can choose also this one, it's the same. I can choose also B2, it's the same. Which must be larger or equal, pay attention to this value here. Add. The minimum number of seminars, which must be larger or equal to this one. Okay. And now, when you are here, think carefully whether your variables are integer or not. Okay. The number of seminars in a year, usually it's an integer variable. You cannot do half seminar. So I fix that seminars be integer. Okay. On the other hand, the number of books, well, you may decide whether the number of books will be integer. It means that you must finish producing books at the end of the year, or you can accept also decimal books. So you can accept half book. It means that half book is written this year, and the next year probably you will write the other half. Okay, so I will leave books not integer, so you can write half books. Now I'm finished. I click OK. Oops. I click cancel. Okay. I see that all my constraints are here. Okay, and you click just on solve. It finds the best solution. In this case, it's rather obvious. You write the minimum amount of books required, and you increase the seminar as much as possible. Okay. If you try with different costs, for example, you increase the cost limit of a seminar, you will see that probably it's better to write more books and do less seminars. Okay. Once you are here, you can do another thing. You can have the answer report. Okay, in Italian it's called valori, but it's an answer report. You just click here if you want it, you press OK, and another thing appears here, and you get the report. What does this report say? Well, a lot of technical values, but at the end it tells you the final value of the objective function, the final value of books and seminars. It tells you also this thing which is pretty interesting. It tells you whether the minimum number of books, whether you are right at the border or whether you are far away from the border. In this case, we publish only one book, so it means that we are right at the border, and we are also right at the border with a cost limit formula. On the other hand, we are not right at the border of the working hours. Means that working hours, the constraint, it's obviously satisfied, 920, but we could work more. Okay, we had to stop because of the cost limit. Okay, so it tells you which constraint forced you to stop. Okay. Last thing, let's go back to the solver. Okay. There is another constraint you may put. It's the bin. We don't do the diff. The bin simply forces your variable to be binary. Binary means that your variable is either 0 or 1. No other value is admitted. Okay. Okay, let's see now how to print things. Okay. Well, printing seems to be a very easy task. In fact, it is. But there are a lot of little settings which often many people forget and don't use, or they don't know that they exist, which produce very, very bad printing and almost unreadable tables. We will go through the most forgotten ones, okay, or the most important ones now. Go to sheet long. It's called in this way because it's, as you can see, long. We will use it as an example to print. Okay. First of all, where are all the printing options? The printing options are in page layout. Well, the worst thing you can do is go in directly here, file, print. This is the worst thing you can do. You can see a file like this is totally unreadable. First of all, you don't have lines. Then it's split into this different papers, and you don't realize what is what. So this is the worst place to go. Page layout, okay, and click here on this little button here. Here you have all the printing options. Orientation, portrait or landscape. I think it's self-explanatory. For example, for this table, landscape is the best choice, clearly. A very important option is scaling. Okay. Well, if you want to resize it, you can work here. But if you want to put exactly on 1 page wide by 1 page tall, it's much better to choose this option here. At the exam, if I ask you, put it on exactly 1 page, and I see that you have simply reduced the size, I will mark it as wrong. Put the paper, the file, print the file on exactly one page means choosing this option here. Can you see? With this option here, oops, Excel will shrink everything. You can see. In this case, it has been shrinked up to a unreadable way, okay, but we will see better results. Let's see. Try to make it portrait, for example, and you will see that portrait, it starts to be readable. It has been shrinked to fit exactly on one page, okay, which corresponds to 69%. Okay, if I ask instead, go back to landscape. If I ask instead, please print the file on one page wide, and I don't specify how many pages tall, okay, then it means that you can easily do it like this. The file will obviously not use 10 pages. Okay, this is, let's say, a max. What you write here, it's a maximum. Okay, so it will fit on one page wide and use as many pages as it needs. So print preview. Can you see? Now it's much better. You can see it uses 3 pages, so you can see only 3 pages, not 10 as I wrote. Okay, it is exactly shrinked in such a way that it fits the entire width. So according to my opinion, this is one of the best options. Okay, if you fit it to 1 by 1, it will use exactly one page. If you fit to 1 by and you put a large value, it will not use all the values for the length of the file, but it will use only as many pages as necessary. This is really one of the best things and one of the things I use most. Fit 1 by many. Merges. Well, merges are self-explanatory, are the merging of the file. What is not self-explanatory is this thing here. Sometimes I see a table which appears here on the upper left corner. Well, many times it's much better to center it horizontally, you can see, horizontally or vertically, okay, or both. In Texama will be very clear on what I want. You can see, it is perfectly centered. Can you see? Also this one is perfect. Maybe here it doesn't make sense to center it vertically, so let's go back and don't center it vertically. Okay, only horizontally. Header and footer. The header and the footer. So what appears on the top of each page and what appears on the bottom of each page. It's always a good idea. A Texama will ask you clearly, but in general it's always a good idea to write the file name, the author, and the date and the number of the page. Because if your printing contains many pages, well, you will immediately screw all them up if you don't print the number of pages. If you don't print the file name, the next year you will wonder what these data are. So custom header. For example, here you can put the file name. You can see file name directly. Okay. Or you can type it yourself. My example. Okay. The sheet name. Sheet name. Let's put the sheet name. Okay. On the bottom, custom footer. On the left, let's put the page number. Okay. Off, followed by the total number of pages. This is the page number, this is the total number of pages. Don't worry about these strange symbols. It means the current page number, the current total number of pages. Here on the right, let's put the current date. So the date where you printed it. So in these 3 fields, you may either type things yourself, okay, or press here and you will get automatic things. Let's see, print preview. You can see my example, the sheet name, 1 of 3 by Paolo Coletti, the date. Same thing here, same thing here. Okay, finally, in this menu here, first of all you find what is the most important printing option, the one which I ask always. I have never seen a table where you don't need it, and I don't understand why it's not checked by default. Grid lines. Can you see that the table here is unreadable? If you want to follow American ecology, you have to put your finger and try to follow here the numbers. It will be much better to see your grid lines. In order to see your grid lines, you just need to click here, grid lines. Print preview. Oh, now it's much better. The grid lines will not be dotted, will be straight lines. So American ecology, you can follow it much better. Where is a page layout here? Other options here, the print area. In case you don't want to print everything, you want to leave a column out. For example, you want to tell to leave out your gain in percentage and gain per year in percentage, you can select a print area. So my print area, for example, leaves out these two columns. Okay. In case you want to repeat your titles on every sheet, which is always a good idea, otherwise you don't understand anymore, row to repeat at top. And now let's look at the masterpiece. You can see you don't see the other two columns anymore. You can see that the table is centered. Okay. Can you see we are on page 2 and we still have the headers repeated. Same thing on page 3. Okay. There are some other options here. They are more or less the same: portrait, landscape, what to print. Okay. But usually it's much better. There are also the same options here: orientation, print area, print titles. But it's much better to work here where you find all the options in these 4 tabs. Okay. Okay, when you're finished, you can click print and you will print. At exam, I don't ask you to print, obviously, otherwise a chaos will happen. I ask you, however, to print on a PDF. And we will see later how to produce PDFs and how to print on a PDF. Okay, now before going on, there is one last thing concerning this kind of settings. Press OK and fix all the settings. Okay, the breaks. Okay, go to View, View Workbook, Views, Page Break Preview. Workbook Views, Page Break Preview. Currently we are looking at the table in normal view. It means that you see the table like here in the standard way. If you choose Page Break Preview, you will see the table as it will be printed. So you will see where Excel has decided to cut. Okay, you can see you can adjust where the page breaks are by clicking and dragging them with your mouse. So if you don't like the last page to have only 4 stocks, you can adjust it. Also readjust this one here. So you can readjust a little bit your page breaks. Obviously don't exaggerate, because if you make a too large page, everything will be very shrinked. If you make a page with a few content, everything will be very enlarged. Okay. And don't change this one unless you want to display the other choose. For example, if you want to display gain percentage, but currently, remember, I have changed my printing area. Okay. This is a good thing because especially whenever you have insert page break. Okay. Oops. How can I remove this page break? Page break. Here, maybe here. Remove page break. Okay. In case you have pages in this way, so split also in the vertical direction, it's a good way to choose where to split because it will change everything and your readability. Now I don't like splitting in the vertical direction, so I remove, if I can, I remove this. Okay. So you can insert another page removal, but usually the thing you do is only splitting here. Okay, when you go back to normal view, you only will see these dotted lines. It's just to remind you that you have set some breaks, and if you want to see how it will look like, you go here and you will see. I have the impression, okay, it's not vertically aligned. Can you see? It's only horizontal aligned and not vertically aligned. Okay, when you're satisfied, print and it will get printed.